Coming up next on the Jeff Crilley Show, we're going to talk to a digital guru about all things web and cybersecurity. His journey just ahead.
Many are predicting that the worst is yet to come, which is unfortunate, said one person here. Until now, they've enjoyed the reputation of being the nation's icebox.
Watched a burglar in his home this morning by webcam.
As a journalist of over 25 years, stories are what make my world turn.
Reporting live from the Dallas newsroom tonight, Jeff Crilley, Fox 4 News.
But in 2008, I took the jump from my familiar life and started a PR firm from my home.
We're talking about anyone with a camcorder like the one I'm using becomes a television network.
We started slowly growing the company, and we now have over 100 clients, and we've branched into the world of live digital broadcasting. I now own 8 different TV studios and have a huge team, and the stories that I now get to share are sometimes the most important of my life. Life has a funny way of coming around full circle. This is the Jeff Crilley Show.
Well, one of the things we saw during the height of COVID is if you didn't have a strong web presence, you could be out of business. We all saw restaurants that didn't do much online, and then suddenly overnight they had to go digital. To talk about that, Jonathan Taylor with TaylorMade Consulting. Thanks for coming on the show.
Thank you, Jeff. Thank you.
Well, you've been at this for a while. What year did you start your company?
So we started the company in 2006. I got 2 business partners, James and Jacoy, and we've kind of been running ever since.
Awesome. Tell me about COVID, because I'm sure you got flooded with just emergencies, right? What happened during COVID?
So COVID, as everyone knows, kind of shut down the economy. And so everybody had to work from home. And so working from home, we had to adjust. We need to make sure internet was there. We needed to make sure we had web presence. We needed to make sure we knew how to work Zoom. And so during that time, we peaked. We kind of transitioned a little bit from doing a lot of videos and more into the technology side, where people needed help setting these things up, setting up Zoom for churches and things like that so that they can have an online presence.
Yes, and so you do everything from soup to nuts when it comes to digital, right? Web work, cloud, cybersecurity?
Absolutely, absolutely. You know, one thing that I do enjoy is playing on computers, video games, all of that kind of stuff. So we help clients really with their digital presence, helping them build that website, getting it onto the cloud. You know, little things like email. People don't realize that email, you're in the cloud. And so we try to get you partnered with good companies like Google and Yahoo and things like that, to where your business is showing up on that first page of Google.
Sure. And we're going to go to his success stories page from his website, and as we scroll down there, you've worked on some very large accounts. Is it as an entrepreneur, a young entrepreneur, is it kind of is it a lot of pressure when you're working with a big company?
Oh, wow, it is. It is. You know, that expectation level is just a little bit much more higher. But, you know, one thing about TaylorMade Consulting Group is we try to make sure that every single client gets treated like they're the main thing going on. And so we do make sure that each one of our partners get that special attention. But yes, we try to make sure that big clients are getting the results they need.
You have a background in video.
Yes, so I started video in 2006. My wife was in a wedding and wanted to be a bridesmaid, and so she said, "You're going to take this camera, you're going to film me." Well, I loved it. Got to editing the video and really just fell in love with it. And so we started the company doing a lot of commercials and birthday parties and things like that. But once we started transitioning doing videos for the bigger guys, those bigger guys were like, "Hey, it's a beautiful video, but I've only got 30 views." And I watched it 29 times. So what we had to do is kind of pivot a little bit and get some of that digital marketing. And so that's how we transitioned from video into the digital marketing.
Sure. And you do a lot of cloud computing and cybersecurity work. We've got some video that we're going to put up as we're talking about this. What kind of cybersecurity stuff do you work on these days?
So some of the big things that we're dealing with is the Trojan horses, of those viruses. And so what we try to do is we come into a company and we analyze, do a technology audit, if you will. And we look at the different loopholes and gaps that they have within their infrastructure. And so what we try to do is try to close those gaps, close those loopholes to make sure that you don't have bad actors coming in and infiltrating your data. And so a lot of that is just really about protecting data, and then making sure that they're storing it in multiple places, because if it does go down, you want to make sure that you can pull up all that information.
Sure. And Jonathan, I know it got more difficult as companies went remote, because you might have a button-down system when everybody was in the office, but everybody suddenly is logging in from home. I'm sure you got a lot of calls for that.
Oh man, that is one of the biggest, scariest parts for a company. Getting my data in people's homes. And so, yes, there are certain ways and certain things that we had to do to make sure that businesses were protected and secure, so that their data was not compromised.
What are you seeing for 2023 so far?
So for 2023, I see a lot of anxiety. I see businesses worried about where the future is going to go. I don't necessarily see a slowdown in business just yet, but I see a lot of businesses and companies preparing. So they're looking at budgets. They're looking at ways to cut costs, the ways to save. And so that technology audit that we do, it actually helps them look at what assets they have and what phones that they're using and things like that. And really identifying, is this a service or a need that I'm, utilizing? We found that companies have phone lines that they're not even using. During the good times and during that COVID, they were just throwing money to make sure that people could work from home. But now it's time to kind of scale back a little bit, and we're helping with that.
Let's talk about your web development work, because I know there are styles in web developing that come and go. And sometimes you pull up a website and you're like, when was this developed, in 1990? Who built this thing? How often should somebody come back and redo their website?
Well, it's always good to look at your website on a monthly basis. I tell clients, always check and make sure that everything on your website is relevant. But definitely, if you're not doing it on a monthly or quarterly, look at that thing and make sure that your services hadn't changed. Make sure that you're still providing the same type of products, things like that. Pricing may have changed.
Yes.
And you want to make sure that you're not giving out the wrong information. One thing I will add, Jeff, when it comes to website, it's one thing to have a website. It's another thing for people to be able to find it. And so make sure that you're, we try to make sure that we add those keywords and those certain backlinks and things, so that they do get popped up on Google when people are searching for their products.
Yes, and I need to brag about Jonathan. He did something like 8 interviews across the country last week about TikTok, and maybe share your views on that. Everybody is now wondering whether or not TikTok is a Trojan horse for the Chinese government. What are your thoughts?
So ByteDance, which is a company that owns TikTok, Chinese government has a stake in that company. And so any of these companies that we download applications or phones, we give them permissions. And so we've got to be careful with those permissions that we're giving them to make sure that they're not in our meetings or planning or development meetings. And so from the government perspective, we've seen the President Biden, he just signed that $1.7 trillion infrastructure bill. In that was a provision tucked in there for TikTok. And so what we want to do is make sure that these devices are on government, these apps are not on government devices, that they're not on state devices. And so that way the Chinese government doesn't have access to this information.
Absolutely. Jonathan, how does one know when they need a company like yours?
So that is a very good question. If you are in the need to grow, or if you are in the need to just look at what you have with regards to technology or your telecommunications, your phone systems, whether it be mobile or office. If you want to evaluate where you're at and what you got, that's a good time to start looking for a company like mine, to come down, sit down, educate you, bring my team in and partner with you to get some results.
Outstanding. Jonathan Taylor, we're going to end with the website, which is TaylorMadeConsultingGroup.com. The great Jonathan Taylor. Thanks for coming on the show.
Thank you, Jeff.
That's it for now. We'll see you next time.